left hand, you'll know it's Rob.
That's right, yeah. That's the only way to tell, is to throw something and see which hand you catch it with.
Is Rob still in Indianapolis
He is, yeah.
with Lily?
No, he works for a company called TriMedics. It's in
Oh,
the medical field.
Okay.
He's been there for 7 years, I think, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. He might pop on tonight.
How about Leonard? Is he popping on? Did I hear?
No, he'll probably watch and stuff with this, but
Yeah, okay.
I had a long conversation with him, and he's a remarkable guy. I mean,
Yeah, he is.
and,
You can't get off the phone though, when you're talking to him.
well, he remembers stuff so far back and details that I have no recollection of. So,
Yeah.
of course, there's a bias maybe there in how he remembers them and stuff like that too. But
Hey,
it's,
Randy, so I don't make a mistake here. You played with Tex Winter at Northwestern, right? For a while?
yes, we did. Rob and I both did. Yeah, our freshman year.
You were there when I called him or you or somebody.
Yep, that was his first year there, when our freshman year.
Good.
I think if Rob had to do it again, he probably would have stayed with basketball. He ended up playing a lot of minutes. He was a third guard for that during the season after we went out after football ended. So, and did you run across Billy McKinney?
No.
Dennis?
I
Okay,
didn't know.
I think Billy spoke at Texas funeral, I think.
I didn't go to it.
Oh, didn't you? Okay. Yeah.
No.
Okay, everyone. I am going to cut in. Otherwise, I feel like you four could go all night. So we're going to get started because we are currently streaming live on Facebook. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the 4th installation of our Facebook series, which is sponsored by Verizon. My name is Melissa Zhang, and I am USA Team Handball's Communications Manager. I am very happy to be joined today by 4 very special guests, members of the 1972 and 76 Olympic team who represented the United States in handball in Munich and Montreal, and have been longtime ambassadors for our sport. So we're honored to have them on today and to hear more about their handball journeys and experiences. We'll get started at the very bottom with Dennis Burkholtz, who is calling in from Kansas City. Dennis is a 72 Olympian and was the coach of the 1976 Olympic team. He also served as president of USA Team Handball from 1996 to 2000 and was director of the USA Beach Handball program from 2015 to 2019. There's a great piece on Dennis written on our website by Larry Weigel. I would encourage you to check that out if you have not heard Dennis's full story or the full scope of his accomplishments, which are many. So thank you for joining us today, Dennis.
Thank you, Melissa.
Of course.
I think I'm supposed to talk a little bit about how this all started. And it started through a program called Army Champs back in 1969. When I was in the Army, I got a call one day and invited me up to New York as part of this program that our president, Peter Buning, put together with General Westmoreland. Vietnam was hot and heavy at that time. And the concept of the Army Champs program was to start a program that would very likely include athletes like myself, Rick Abrahamson, who's on this call, and 7 or 8 other guys who started training for team handball. And rather than go to Vietnam, we were the poster boys of sport of the Army to let people know that the Army wasn't all about war, it was about sport as well. So my journey started at that time, and I was the first guy to go to New York, learn how to play. There's a good story that I can tell. When I was invited to go to New York to play team handball, I was in the Army, as I said, and I told the guys that called me out of the Department of the Army that I wasn't interested in playing handball because I didn't like the little black ball up against the wall, which we've all heard before. And I was short, which means that I didn't have a whole lot of time left in the Army. So I told them I wasn't going to go. And I was a wise ass athlete in the Army at the time. And they called me back the next day and reminded me that I was a specialist in the Army and I would go to New York. And that's really the story of how I became an Olympian. Somebody told me that I had to go up to New York and learn this new sport. I walked into the gym at Adelphi, and Peter Buning was with me, who was the guy that put this whole program together. And I knew right away that I could play the sport because I was a point guard in basketball and it requires ball handling. And I fell in love with it that first day, and I stayed with it through at least 78 or 79, maybe 10 years. But I was lucky enough to be that first guy. Traveled around being in the Army and taught athletes at the various bases around here. I went to Asia with Rick Abrahamson, Rico, and we taught over there a little bit. The guys was that we would go teach the sport and select the best athletes we could to come back and join our friends at Adelphi and start our Olympic journey. So it was a great experience, and I was a lucky guy.
Excellent. Thank you, Dennis. And obviously, incredible journey to spread the word about handball from not knowing what the actual sport looked like and thinking that it was the sport where you hit a ball against a wall. That's a great segue, Dennis. Thank you. Into introducing Rick Abrahamson, who is calling in tonight from Oregon. He's another basketball player. He played for the University of Oregon before going on to become a two-time Olympian in handball at the 72 and 76 Olympics. So Rick, thank you so much for being here as well.
You bet. Yeah. You know, I would have to say I'm just as lucky as Dennis. Incredibly lucky. The date was October 21st, 1970. And I was training with I was an officer, ROTC. I went into the Army, but I thought I could stay out of Vietnam. I was training with the All-Army basketball team, thinking that was a ticket. And October 21st, 1970, the coach called me in. He said, Abrahamson, you're on orders for Vietnam. We're going to Iran to play in the international games, but I can't keep you off those orders. But I got a call from the Pentagon today, and there's a new sport that the Army is really pushing. Westmoreland's pushing it. And they're starting up in Fort Bragg tomorrow. And if you go, I think you've got a chance. And if you do make it, you'll probably stay out of Vietnam. I said, when can I go? And I was on the midnight flight that night. I took the red eye and went to Fort Bragg, which was the first official training camp that the Army put together, headed up by Dennis. Dennis ran it. And there were probably 50, 60 good college athletes that were at the camp. And at the end, they picked 7 to continue on and be what in essence was the Army training team. And I was lucky enough to be one of the 7. And that in itself kept me out of Vietnam, because we were on a program to go all the way to Munich, which was still a year and a half away. But Peter Buning, the president of the federation, had the connection with Westmoreland to keep 4, 5, 6 of his guys. Out of the 7 guys that made that cut, 4 of us went on and participated in Munich. So again, I was very, very lucky. So good times.
It's an incredible story. And, you know, just everything from flying out at midnight to being a part of 2 Olympic Games and representing the US is really phenomenal. And you had a teammate for 2 of those Olympic Games on the call today, Kevin Sarapidi, who is also calling in from Oregon in Bend. Kevin was a D1 athlete in track and field and football, and then also went on to represent the United States at the 72 and 76 games. So Kevin, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you. Well, I guess, you know, this is a story of 4 lucky guys. And, but I transferred into Adelphi University and had an excellent track and field team there at that time. Ron Basil, who went on to coach who was the head coach of the track and field team at the Olympics, had recruited lots of really good track athletes, some from the islands, some from around the US. They had a 4x4 relay team that had the world record for a while. And so I got to know Ron Basil. He was a very gregarious guy. And he said, we have these great athletes, and they did, both men's and women's. And he said, we need some points in the field events. We're not scoring any points. So he recruited me. I had thrown the javelin in addition to some of the other things I did. And so I was taken by him, and he said, I got this guy from the basketball team. Can you teach him how to throw the javelin? So that's kind of how I got involved with the athletic department. And then after practice one day, I ran into Laszlo. I'd been playing some pickup basketball. And after we had lost our side and we're getting off the court, Laszlo goes, what you doing on Friday? And I said, well, nothing really. What are you up to? He goes, well, you come down Friday, I'll teach you how to play handball. So I got involved with the Adelphi team, which had been really successful. And it was a really diverse group of people because of Laszlo. He knew the Hungarian connection, and we had some Germans and Yugoslavs and, college athletes and African-American dudes, and just a mix of guys who wanted to play ball. And Adelphi was participating in what they called the New York League. And it was teams from New York City, Long Island, and New Jersey. And that's essentially how I got started with the game, and then just took it from there, and then ran into Burke not too many months afterwards. I think we played Mexico back in New York, Burke.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 games against Mexico. And so that's how I got started.
Fascinating. For those of our audience members who are watching and might not know as much handball history, would one of you be able to explain who Laszlo is, who is a very important figure in, the history of USA Team Handball and just kind of finding talented athletes out of nowhere, seemingly. Would one of you care to kind of explain Laszlo?
Kevin.
Sure. Well, Laszlo, like most of the Hungarians on our team, still is a very interesting guy. He grew up in Hungary in World War II, so I threw World War II, and then emigrated to this country. He was a very good athlete, gymnast, played basketball, also played soccer. So interestingly enough, when he first came to this country, he happened to run into this other Hungarian who played goalie, Elmer Edas, who played with us also. So Laszlo and Ellie were living in this little 1-room apartment, and they would go to soccer practice on a daily basis. And then when they'd get their little stipend afterwards, they didn't speak any English, then they'd go to the same diner every week to get something to eat. And the only thing they knew in English was ham and eggs. And so after about 3 or 4 days, whenever they'd walk in the door, the cook would go, here come ham and eggs. And so Laszlo, being a gregarious guy, he taught gymnastics at Adelphi, and he also taught at Waldorf School, which was just off of campus. And then so he would go around and find different athletes from Adelphi or just word of mouth, guys who were playing in the city, and try to recruit them to play handball. And I believe at this point in time, many of his players have gone on to coach teams out on Long Island, whether they became school teachers or just helped out. So he was kind of the nucleus in Long Island, New York City area to really get things going and try to spread handball as much as possible. And he's still doing it. He's still coaching. So, I started in '69, and here we are 51 years later. He's still going strong. Aren't you, Laz?
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. And yes, as someone who has met Laszlo, I can definitely attest he still has that energy and passion for handball that has not gone away a single bit. Finally, I'm very pleased to introduce Randy Dean. If any of you have been following along with this whole Jay Cutler discussion that has been going on about handball, Jay can take a seat compared to Randy, who actually has been there and done that. Randy was quarterback in the National Football League for the New York Giants from 1977 to 1979. And he was also a 1976 Handball Olympian for Team USA. So Randy's calling in tonight from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you, Randy, for being here with us today.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. It's really an honor to be associated with these other three gentlemen and their teammates from 1972, because I echo their thoughts of how fortunate I was. Now, mine was not a life or death situation like they were potentially, like Rico and Dennis were potentially facing, but goes back to even 1971 at Whitefish Bay High School on the north side of Milwaukee. I think, Dennis, you were instrumental in bringing the national team for an exhibition to the high school, I believe, in November of 71. That was our first exposure to the sport. I say we because I am fortunate to have this journey along with my twin brother, Rob. I'm right-handed, he's left-handed, so we were able to confuse some people along the way. And then another classmate named Michael Leonard, who is, incredible journey of his own, not only through handball, but also with the USOC, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so the three of us were blessed to have Dennis come back, have this exhibition against Canada, and it was introduced in the PE program. We were juniors in high school at the time. And so that's where we got started on literally a grassroots level. The following summer, in the summer of 72 at Summerfest, which is a big lakefront musical festival in Milwaukee, we hosted or helped to host a national junior championship. Teams from Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and Chattanooga and around the country came in. And it literally was grassroots because we played on a grass field right on the lakefront. What is there now is an amphitheater for music, so it's long gone. But that was our introduction to it. We just stuck with it, stayed in touch with Dennis, went to camps along the way. That was through high school, and then we went off to college. And then I played a little football along with my twin brother, so we dropped it for a year or so. And we got a call from Brad Schlesinger, a teammate of ours, who played in 72 in, I think, early May of 75. And he asked if we would be interested in playing in the national championships at Ohio State. So to resurrect our maybe budding careers in handball, so we called Mike, who was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My twin brother and I were at Northwestern. And so we played on the national team with Brad. And that was a good choice too, because we won the championship in 75 and Brad was the most valuable player. So we picked a good teammate. And so it kind of grew from there through camps and those things. But again, we were so blessed to have been exposed to the sport, it being early on, not many people knew about it. We fell in love with it as these other people did. And it really worked out well for us for lifelong experience and friendships too.
Terrific. Thank you for being here and for explaining your origin story in handball. I want to kind of talk about the history component because, all of you have kind of seen handball throughout the years and experienced the Olympic Games, which is very rare. So in terms of talking about the 1972 and 76 team, what were some of those differences between the two teams and what did that preparation look like leading up to the games?
Well, having coached in 76 was a very difficult journey for us, fun, but difficult because it was so different from 72. When I started, it was 1969. So I had 2.5 years of training. I want to mention Peter Buning, who was the president of the sport and who actually developed the program. Between he and Laszlo, they need to be remembered for kind of being the founders of handball in the US. And we were all blessed that these guys were as dedicated administrators as we were athletes. But in 72, we trained together. We had this whole program, all our teammates together for about 1.5 years. And we were in Europe all the time playing. I often tell the story how what I learned from handball was how to lose because we lost all the time. And myself and my teammates and Randy and Rob as well, we all came out of great programs where we were winners all our lives. But having said that, by the time the Olympics came along in '72, we were really a good team and could compete. I'll let Rico add to that. But beyond that, when we got together in '76, it was a total different story because most of our athletes got married, had jobs, and we couldn't train full time. Robbie and Randy, who were both really great athletes, I use the word maybe that they were cheated from not being able to experience their sport enough to become superstars because they had that kind of talent. But training on the weekends, I often call us just weekend warriors. We went up to Munich and really didn't have much of a chance because we were out of shape. We hadn't been playing together that much. We had some new players. And it was really, really difficult. But yet none of us would ever complain about that because it was just another great Olympic journey. And I think what we would all take out of that is even through losing, the best part of the sport besides playing it is learning that you have to play hard every single day, whether you have a chance to win or not. And eventually you end up being a pretty good player. And I think carrying that whole feeling over in your lifetime. So it was really good. But the point that I think we would all like everyone to remember is that Peter Buning and Laszlo Jurák were really the founders of this, and we need to find a way in handball to keep their spirit alive. It's very important to us old timers.
Yeah, I would just add about the '76, as Dennis alluded to, every game was a learning experience for us, even at the games, for people such as like Rob and myself and a couple other new guys to the team in '76. I think that's where it comes out, like, you know, Jay Cutler, and I was humbled kind of like maybe from Jay Cutler's perspective. I even did an interview with a Wall Street Journal back in 2016 about Tim Tebow being a handball player. Would he be a great handball player? Yeah, he probably would be, but you just don't walk on the court and do that. And it was kind of humbling for Rob and myself to experience this and think this is a pretty easy sport. It's not. There's a lot of sophistication to it. I think we were better athletes, but we weren't better handball players. And it doesn't diminish the experience and opportunity we had, but it sure was this level of disappointment that we didn't represent our country better.
Well,
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think Tebow would be a good circle runner, but I don't think he'd be the big shooter like Rico was or Randy.
You know, Randy, I would say what you just said is so true in the sense that you learn something every game. And the disadvantage was in the '76 team, we didn't have a budget to go to Europe. We went to Iceland. The Romanians came over to the United States. We played a few games prior to the Olympics, but there was no real preparation for Montreal like there was for Munich. And like Dennis said, we probably went to Europe 8 times in 1971, 72, played maybe not 100 games, but a lot of games. And every game we got better. We learned every game. We had the benefit of, I guess, losing a lot more than you, Randy, because we were humbled. We were humbled many times. And, you know, we just, it's kind of the Olympic motto, you know, it's not the essential thing to win, but to have fought well. Well, we fought well. Mm-hmm. And we finally, and I think Dennis mentioned it, maybe he didn't, but we were invited to Romania and they were the world champions. And this was just before Munich. And why they brought us in was amazing to train with, but they did. And we spent 2 weeks with them. And by that time, it was a full year of going to Europe. And by that time, playing side by side with them and learning the game at a much higher level, we walked away and said, you know what, we could be competitive in Munich. And so we had that confidence going forward. And that was difficult in '76 because Randy, you didn't have the opportunity to play that many games. But I call it, you know, you hear about the miracle on ice, but honestly, we were the miracle in Munich in the sense that we beat a top 10 team, Spain, and we're a bunch of hooligans, that got together for a year and a half and trained, and we just kept getting better. And we the old saying, stay the course. Well, we accepted defeat very early, but we knew we were getting better. And so anyway, I think we were very successful in Munich, and poor Dennis was coaching us in Montreal, and we were weekend warriors. We got together once a month and trained, and that just doesn't work. You've got to be together as a team, eat as a team, live as a team, and practice 5 days a week. So
that makes sense. And in talking to you all earlier, I heard some pretty amazing stories about that experience of living and eating together, sleeping in the same car, living together in a house together. Can you tell me a bit about that experience in terms of just really committing to all being part of this one family?
And I'll take the lead. We actually had a house in New Jersey. Forgot the address. I should know it. And as the guys got out of the Army, they all came and lived in the house. And I think, Rick, you can correct me, but I think there were 11 of us living in this house.
324 Chestnut.
Yeah, 324 Chestnut, that a boy. And I know we were using my car. I had an old beat up Ford that was driving us back and forth from practice. We would train two times a day, and then we'd drink beer at night and try to iron things out. And we really bonded as a team. The guys in the Army would join us at times, and the guys from Adelphi. And the one thing that I remember most about 72, or one of the things I remember most, is how bonded we became as a team. And I often speak these days about one of the things about building a successful program is you got to love your teammates. And there was no question that in 72, because of all the time we spent together and the good guys we had on the team, we loved one another. And to this day, and we played like that. To this day, I'm sure that anything ever happened to any one of us, we would have 11, 12 guys behind our back like we did in Munich. I wanted to tell everybody that Kevin was our enforcer as far as I was concerned. He would take care of anything that went wrong on the court, if I remember correctly.
I had the help from Terry Tinkle, but no, but I think you bring up a good point about, bonding, and, Rico, as Rico said, we went to Europe maybe 8 times or so, but, it was no picnic. We'd go for 14 games. We'd have 12 games, and we'd start, we'd always play in Iceland, and then we'd go into Luxembourg and then get on the train and go to France and Germany or wherever, head up into Scandinavia. Or if we got, I remember one time we played 14 games in 17 days, and that's where we run into the situation. You get on the train at night, you've got a long journey ahead of you. And, the European cars, you face each other 3 by 3. Well, at nighttime, you just slide them down, everything lies flat. And that's when we have the stinky foot contest, because you're always there. So twice we had sleeping berths, though. And the first time we were all ecstatic, just looking so forward to it, a bed, not smelling the stinky feet. And somehow the reservations got lost. So actually most of us had to sleep in the aisle and sit on our suitcases and try to sleep because they had lost our reservation. The rest of the train was full. There weren't even regular seats for us. But the second time we got on the train in Germany, and we hadn't eaten dinner, which was, it happened now and then. But a guy would always come through with a cart, would have beer and pop and bratwurst and things like that. And he came into our car, and we were the first car he hit. And we're like, "You're not going anywhere." So he goes, "No, I have to go through the train." And I think it was Rico and JR, but they were, having been officers, they had a little bit of money. And I think they bribed the guy. And we cleaned out that cart in about 10 minutes flat, but it was, even though we didn't have a luxurious lifestyle, we had great fun. And I think that's really bonded with us. And when Rico says we lost a lot, we lost, I wish JR was here, because we lost 26 games in a row when we started. And of course, you don't play any home games. And then, of course, you get back on the train, you get off the next day, you go to practice, and then you have a game the next night, essentially. So, like Burke said, most guys were D1 athletes. Like Roger Baker wasn't, but he was a D3 All-American. They were top basketball team. He and Rico were top scorers in high school in the state of Oregon. We had good athletes, and but the bonding and the camaraderie and working together was really important about putting together a team.
Absolutely. I could say
And we're competing against, I mean, Eastern European teams were, at the time, they were a whole level above most other teams in Europe. And in many ways, they were professional. I mean, they were in the military, they were paid, and they played together constantly. And so that's what you're competing against. You're competing against teams that are playing 5, 6, 7 days a week, and then playing in tournaments all over Europe. And so for us, being a team and playing together like we did in 72, we actually had a chance to compete. Difficult in 76.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why at the end of the Olympics in 72, the Yugoslavs, who beat the Romanians in the final for the gold medal, we had played them the closest of any team except for Romania in the final. So those guys all wanted to trade out jerseys and other equipment, once the games were over. We couldn't trade our uniforms. We had to turn them back in. But the Yugoslavs had these really great Adidas leather bags, and they traded those beautiful leather bags for just a regular white t-shirt, but it did say USA Olympic team with the rings on it. And that was good enough for them. And I still have the bag.
that's incredible. And that's a great segue, Kevin, into, I wanted to ask each of you what your favorite Olympic memory was. I'm sure there are many, but maybe if you can just mention one or two, that would be great. And I should also note for the audience that you can feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we'll be having an open Q&A with our guests after the conversation portion. So getting back into it, what is everyone's favorite Olympic memory?
For me, it was walking into opening ceremonies in Munich. The U.S. was really strong and well respected at the time. I think we were a lot stronger and more respected than we are today. But at that time, when 72,000 people stand up because you're from the U.S. walking into the stadium, it was quite a thrill, and very, very proud to have USA across our chest. I also think that in my case, having my parents there and two of my brothers, and seeing them in the stands when we played handball, it's a great honor. You're not only representing your country, but your family. And then the love we had with our teammates. I think those three things will certainly stand with me forever.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Dennis on opening ceremonies. You just never forget it. You can put yourself in there right now, and the pageantry, the color, it's unbelievable. For me, though, beating Spain in Munich was number one. I mean, the prior year, they were rated in the top 10 in the world, and that was an amazing win. 2 days later, we played Denmark and lost the last second shot, but we really came together at the end of the tournament. But I'll throw one quick one out that these guys might have forgotten. But we had a situation we were in Oslo, Norway, Bergen, Norway, and we were flying to Sweden, and we were 0-6 on this trip. It was difficult. I mean, the Scandinavians are very good, and we played the national team in Bergen, the Norwegian national team, and played them okay, but we lost. So we have a game in Sweden, Stockholm, and it's against a very good club team. And Peter, maybe the only time he ever made a mistake with travel arrangements, but somehow only had 7 tickets, airline tickets from Bergen to Sweden. And so Peter picked the first team and sent us on our way. And we got to Sweden with only 6 players. And Kevin, I think you were there, but
Yeah.
somehow we pulled out a win. And Peter came in with the rest of the team. There was about 3 minutes to go, and they're going, "What the hell are you guys doing? You're winning the game. This can't be happening." And so it was really a very good memory to look at a situation where you probably didn't have a chance, and somehow we won. So go ahead, next.
Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, I would echo those as far as the opening ceremonies, walking in with my brother and then have my parents at the games taking the photographs here. But my biggest memory is actually post-Olympics. There's always a reception at the White House after the games, and there's the President Gerald Ford. So my twin brother and I, we fly down from Milwaukee to Washington, D.C., come out of the airport wearing our Olympic dress uniform. And there's a gentleman there with his wife waiting there, and they ask, "Are we going to the White House?" We said, "Yes, we are." He said, "Well, why don't you ride with us?" Limousine pulls up. We hop in the limousine with this gentleman and his wife, drive to the White House, stop at the gate. All the athletes are milling around outside. And so we said, "Thank you very much. We'll get out here." He says, "Stay in the car." We go to the back of the White House. We proceed to have lunch in the White House mess there with this gentleman, his wife, and a White House staff person. Couldn't do it today with security, obviously. And then afterwards, we separate, go to the Rose Garden. The gentleman was Jesse Owens and his wife. He was getting the Medal of Honor that day. And you talk about being in the right spot at the right time, and to realize what this gentleman went through was unfathomable. But he saw us as Olympians, and we had that bond with him. And that was really humbling to know our journey versus his journey. But to be part of that was really something special. So.
Oh my gosh, Randy.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I had for lunch, by the way.
It wasn't as important as that moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, we were really lucky. So lucky all the way through, but that culminated.
Yeah. An incredible human being, him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is hard to beat, walking into the stadium. And I was telling Melissa earlier, last time I wore this jacket, we had a parade in Bend, Oregon for the 2012 Olympic Decathlon Championship. Ashton Eaton, he grew up here in Bend and repeated in 2016. So they invited former Olympians from around Oregon, and we were all in the parade. And I was with a Paralympic athlete and next to another woman who had played volleyball in 68. And when you start marching, they played the, Olympic anthem when you walk into the stadium. And the gal next to me, she was like, "I can't believe how emotional I'm getting." It was like a flashback to that moment when you were walking into the stadium. You come through the big tunnel, it's dark, and all of a sudden, you're in the sunlight. It's a revelation. So that's hard to beat. But I do have another story, if you'll indulge me. We went down in 74 to Buenos Aires to qualify for the World Championships, which were in East Germany. And we played in Luna Park. Burke was there. Rico was there. Berkey, I think, was assistant coach at that time. And Laszlo was the head coach. And we couldn't figure out, we were playing on a marble floor in Luna Park. And there was this wrought iron fence with 3/4-inch wrought iron. It was 10 feet tall with spikes on it. We couldn't figure what's the fence for. So we're getting ready to leave, and there's supposed to be a bus to pick us up. And they say, "Well, we can't guarantee your safety. We're going to have a police escort. You're going to have to walk to the stadium." So we didn't realize what we were getting into. Essentially, it was a soccer crowd, but it was in an indoor stadium. And we were down 11-6 at halftime and, taking it pretty good. We're trying to find our way. We came back to win the game 18-16. And we had to stay in the locker room for over an hour until the police could disperse the crowd afterwards, because I don't think they liked the results of the game. But it was a great win, on the road, hostile crowd, as tough as it gets. And
Well, there were death threats as well.
yes, there were. Yeah.
Yep.
And one of my buddies, or our buddies, but I think I was rooming with Matt Matthews. He had served in Vietnam, and and he was a grunt, so he was out there fighting the fight, in the rice paddies. And he says, "Kevin, now you just come with me." He said, "We're going to be the point men on this deal here." He goes, "They never shoot the point men; they always wait for the point guys to go through." So that's the reason I was walking ahead of you guys. But God bless Matt. We miss him.
I got another story that I often talk about and remember was when we went to East Berlin to play in the World Championships. We got beat after 3 games again, so I left early. I don't know who was with me. I think JR was, but I got to walk through Checkpoint Charlie, which was a huge deal at the time. And I remember the East German guards there with their loaded guns, and had to walk through the maze of cross, whatever they call those things, 5:30 in the morning. And it was really an experience that I'll never forget. And finally got over to the west side, which is at that time Freedom, and caught our plane out of West Berlin. It was awesome. And that, of course, when Reagan tore down that wall, that was a big deal for someone like myself who actually experienced walking through the Checkpoint Charlie part of it.
Can I jump in on Checkpoint Charlie? Because I had something really kind of scary happen. By the way, Missy and I were there just 2 summers ago, and it was fun to go back and see the place. But I walked out probably with you, Burke, or just after you, but I had something happen very unique in the sense that the passport that I took into East Berlin expired while I was there. So I had another passport to get out of East Berlin. And if you remember the last night, we partied and stayed up till 4 in the morning, and we get up at 5 and we walk through Checkpoint Charlie. And I had my valid passport with me, but I just threw everything into the suitcase, and I had no idea where the other passport was. Well, as soon as they saw my name and they saw my passport, my valid passport, the guard said, "That is your other passport." And I had no idea. And they grabbed my suitcase, they tore it open, they threw it on the floor. Guy had me up against the wall with a gun, and they were going through all my items. And luckily, it was at the bottom of my suitcase. But I found out afterwards, I could have probably sold that passport for, I don't know, $10,000, whatever, because someone could have escaped with it. So same situation, Checkpoint Charlie. Very lucky.
You all have stories for days, I have to say. Jesse Owens and now Checkpoint Charlie. It is a great segue though, Dennis. Thank you for bringing up the World Championships. I would be remiss if I did not mention that another World Championship is right around the corner, and the United States was nominated to go compete in Egypt in January. So, it marks another opportunity for growth in American handball, which is really exciting. So I figured I would ask you all kind of what you would like to see specifically in terms of handball growth in America. Is there one more specific area or category that you think is really crucial for it to take off here in the United States?
Andy.
Oh, I was going to say that I know it's in the strategic plan for handball, or has been, is kind of a collegiate program. I'm kind of biased toward that because of my experience trying to play at Northwestern when I was playing football. But there are a lot of good athletes in colleges that I think might be a pipeline, not only for good players, but also future fans of the sport too. So,
Kevin?
Well, it's a multifaceted approach, and Burke, you've been involved with this for a while. I think we need to continue to get younger people, just like nowadays, kids start off with soccer, at a very young age. I think I got a soccer ball when I was 9 years old, and I was a novelty in the neighborhood. No one knew what it was. Of course, it was a million years ago. But I think you need to kind of get the kids interested. But I do think there's a very important aspect on the collegiate level that might be a good tool, because we need exposure, and it's hard to get it on network TV. So when you look at the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10, I won't leave you out, Randy. I said they all have networks, and they all have lots and lots of hours to fill up, and they fill it up with older things, and and the like. But if we could get some leagues in at least the major divisions, there's time on those networks to get exposure. And when we were in Atlanta, I think it was the hardest ticket to come by. It was very popular because, we hosted the games, and we had a team in '96 in Atlanta. And I think once Americans get exposure to it and watch it, they go, wow, that's a great little sport. I like that. And the game is a very short period of time, an hour and 15 minutes, lots of activity, unlike baseball and, sorry, Randy, football. But I played football too, but it was a different era. Yes. But it's a great sport, and we just need exposure. People need to see it.
Rico?
Well, I just am amazed with the last two Olympics. Handball has been on. It's been on, various channels, not the major channels. But I'm just amazed how many people I run into that either email me or call me or say, handball is a great sport. It's a great spectator sport. And I just have to hope that maybe 2028, with all the social media and all the television that we will have here in the United States, that maybe something very positive can come out of it. But I see it as an intramural sport. Handball, we learned to play it at a very high level in 2 years. And I think it can happen on the college campus. I know Dennis went to visit with the NCAA several years ago, but if we could have somebody just at that level, push it at the intramural level. And then, as Kevin says, there's TV venues, there's opportunities to get the sport on television through the Pac-12 channel, the Big 10 channel, whatever. But it's such a great spectator sport. I'll throw this out. Everybody remembers Wilt Chamberlain, the 1990 Goodwill Games in Seattle. Wilt Chamberlain came to handball and saw it and went wild. He came to every game. He sat in the front row, and he said, "This is one of the all-time great sports." And to get that kind of publicity, I think Sports Illustrated printed something somewhere I saw. But we were there, and we saw him every game. And it just seems like there's so many people that come away and say, somehow you've got to get it promoted on a national basis, because people love it.
I think the whole key is to get kids playing handball, and we haven't done a very good job of that in the past because we've always been top down. And getting it on television is important, but we got to get junior programs started. And I know that Craig Rote out of Chicago has got a good one going, and I hope other people can emulate his programs in various cities. Melissa, I also think that we need to target 2028 as a goal to be a top 10 team in the world, and maybe even better than that. And what's always happened in the past, in '84 and '96, I was a part of that program in Atlanta. We prepare for 2 or 3 years, and it's not long enough to prepare to be a winner. And it's time. I'd like to see handball now open an office in LA and start preparing for the 28 games. And I know that's contrary to what a lot of people think. They want to be in Paris in 2024, but what'll happen in 2025 is we'll start over. And we have to really focus in on 2028 as an ultimate target, and play through the games coming up here and then going through Paris in 2024, but with the ultimate goal of not saying we're going to be good, but preparing to be good. And that means kids playing 16 to 22 years old now and going through collegiate programs. And I know there's a good effort going on now to start these college programs at the club level. But it takes a long, long time to build a great handball program. It's been done before in other countries. And hopefully that our current leadership and the leadership of the future can point towards 2028 and really get us there and not just talk about it like we have in the past. And I've been part of the past, so I'm part of the problem.
I think the International Federation would also like to see a strong program here for 2028 also. For the sport of handball worldwide, I think it behooves everyone to have a strong U.S. program.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with all of you and what you just said. You know, we definitely are working towards 2028, Dennis. So I can guarantee you that as our ultimate target, we for sure want younger generations in handball. Kind of switching gears a bit, Verizon is obviously our title sponsor at the moment and has been great to work with. They have been really busy during the pandemic, supporting local businesses during this time. And we have Randy, who is working for a local business at the moment. Randy is executive director of one of US speed skating's training sites, the Petite National Ice Center. So Randy, I'd love for you to say a couple words about the Ice Center and kind of what's going on over there.
Yeah, and when you mentioned this with Melissa, it really resonated with me what Verizon's doing to help small businesses during this very challenging time. Petite National Ice Center has 2 rinks inside the speed skating oval, been there since '92 with a legacy of Olympic gold medal or Olympic medalists since then. But we depend upon our public business. We're not a normal nonprofit corporation. We get 95% of our revenues from our hockey players, our figure skaters, and those things. We're off about 50%. So we understand, respect, and appreciate what companies like Verizon are doing to help small businesses like the Pettit Center to survive and be ready to thrive once this pandemic passes us. So it's been kudos to Verizon for their support of handball, but also for small businesses across the country too. So I thank Verizon on 2 levels, as a handball player, but also as a small business operator.
Phenomenal. Thank you, Randy. Pettit Center.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to this whole LA conversation, I'm very excited to talk more about that with you all. How does it make you all feel knowing that the Olympics are coming back to the United States in around 7 years now, not even 8?
Well, I think it's fantastic. LA did a very good job last time hosting the games. Of course, they have a lot of facilities, either ready to go or close to being ready to go. They've done it before. They have pretty good infrastructure down there. And I think with the 7-year window, it provides handball really good opportunity to get it out of the shadows and get it into the forefront. And if we can put up a really nice competitive team, that will help to get the younger generation interested in there. Because just like you said, and Bert said, we need the kids getting started at a young age. And that's a way to really develop a program. So anything we can do to help, just pick up the phone. We'd be glad to help. I'm sure to a man, anybody, even the guys who are not here, they'd all do whatever they could to get the thing going, because we thought, okay, we got it started and it's going to go, but economics and lots of different things happened. But now here's a new opportunity. So hopefully with Verizon's help, we're going to go 5G into 2028.
Nice. Perfect.
We've all talked about how important it is to be together and to play together. I would hope that in the future, and I don't see it in the near future, although I know there's talk about it having a league in the US. Some people would call it a professional league, but it's probably better to just call it a league, and introduce the sport and having young players play it, and having kids as a farm system like the soccer guys do. Every club has youth programs. The other thing I learned when I was president, and also the many things that I've done in handball, is that handball doesn't have to be played all over the United States. It's far too big to support, with the limited funds we have, to support programs everywhere. And there could be target areas. I think you've been talking about this. I'm not sure about that, but certainly the LA area has so many athletes that aren't playing top levels, collegiate level. They're playing on the beaches, other sports. I'm familiar with this because of beach handball. There are great athletes out there. There are great programs out there. And there's no reason why handball can't find a way out there to have youth leagues that have young players in them that will be our Olympians in 2028. It's a great opportunity. You know, I worked at the Salt Lake games in 02 and the Atlanta games in 96. And we were very successful in 96, but again, we had great athletes, good people, a big program, raised $1.5 million to fund them, and they couldn't win, or I think they won one game. But the fact is that all those great people, both men and women, after the games, they went on with their lives, and we didn't have a program left. And that's been an issue with handball since we all played. And it's something that I hope gets addressed in the future.
Absolutely. You know, I definitely feel like the future of American handball is bright. And right now, you know, as we speak, we have a lot of young athletes who are currently training and striving to be our next Olympians, you know, passing that torch on to the future. So if you could give any advice to those younger athletes, what would that advice be?
Well, what I would say is that being an Olympian will be one of your top 4 or 5 memories in life. It's an incredible accomplishment, but it's the memories. It's the memories with your teammates. It's the memories of competition, the memories of travel. It's something that does not come easy. And I think the best advice is stay the course. The Olympic motto, you don't have to win, but you have to fight. And if you do that, good things happen. Good things happen to good people if you're working hard. And don't be discouraged. I mean, we lost so many games, most people would quit, but we just kept going. And it worked out.
Great answer, Rick. Great answer.
And I think staying the course is really important in handball. I know now they have they have several players playing in Europe, and we're sending more players over there to play. But that's not the total answer, because those guys will get better individually, but how good they get as a team depends on how many times they play together in the next couple of years, and whether they're the age group that you need to be successful in Los Angeles in 2028. But I think Rick hit the nail on the head there about staying the course, play hard every day, get better every day. You're not going to win all the time. Matter of fact, you're going to lose more than you win until we become not only a good team, but a good program. I talked about that a lot in the beach program, because they're way ahead of the court program in terms of high level playing. That not only do you want to win, but you want to have a program in place to sustain winning year after year. You want to be a top 10 team in the world. When we get there, people start paying attention and stop thinking about the little black ball up against the wall.
Yeah, I think with any athlete to get to the top, you got to make choices. You got to make sacrifices. A lot of that is doing it with teammates, as these other 3 gentlemen have related their stories. They're dedicated to each other. They made those choices along the way. It was never easy, but the memories, as Rico mentioned, and the experiences and the doors that are opened because of it are all worth it.
Yeah, I have to reinforce that. And, you know, it's a strange situation when you have a small group of people, you know, so only 16 people made the team. And we have about 24 guys really training with us, something along those lines. So, of course, it's intensely competitive, but you're also friends. So you have to find that balance. And that's where it pays off to get to know one another. So, for example, sometimes, you know, it might come to blows in practice. Things get a little hot and heavy, but then you need a guy like Roger Baker. Hey, okay, guys, let's go have a beer. We'll talk about it, and then next practice you forget all about it. But you have to establish those relationships because you're learning about each other and how you interact. That carries on in the field. Those little connections that you make somehow, they pay off in the long run. So not only technical wise, but just emotionally wise, if you see your buddy down, you got to pick him up, and vice versa. They'll turn around and do the same for you. So, that's why it's called team. There's no I in team.
Kevin brought up a really good point about the number of people that you depend on to get better, and some of them don't make the Olympic team. And yet they are, certainly in our case in 72 and 76, they're still our friends. They come to our reunions and we love them just like brothers, like we love ourselves and the guys that played, because they were and they are an integral part of the program. It takes a lot more than the 12 or 14 guys that are playing. And Kev hit the nail on the head there. We got Danny Foster, Mike Cavanaugh, many others, names that Terry Tinkle.
Terry Tinkle.
To the games.
Yeah.
I could sit here and listen to you all talk for 4 more hours, no problem.
Okay, you buy the beer.
25 cents.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the audience and do a bit of a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. We do have one that came in already, which is, what are the biggest changes in handball since you played? And I'd love to hear an answer from everyone on this one.
Bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah, that's true. I watched all the World Championship. I think it was last year. The COVID thing. I've lost track of time, and I still will go back occasionally. I've saved them and I watch a game. Of course, the game has changed dramatically, like Burke said, and a lot of it has to do with coaching. But I would have preferred to play the game that's played now because I love to run, and I always thought that if you could wear the team down, it's kind of like the no huddle that you've seen in collegiate football that's spread a little bit to the NFL. But, overall, you see the interior guys who are the circle runners, much bigger, much stronger. So you're going to have to compete against those people. The outside shooters are, excellent, as they always have been, as well as the wingmen. So, the emphasis on you has to be conditioning, strength and conditioning, working with your coaches, being able to sustain, and then learning all the techniques. It looks easy on film because they're so skilled. Just like, wow, basketball looks easy when you watch Michael Jordan or, a famous guitar player. It all looks easy till you go to do it. So handball has a lot of technicalities that you can learn. And so don't waste your time, even though strength training and conditioning is important. You need to learn the little technical aspects of the game, because until you do, you're always going to be one step behind. So.
Yeah, I have to agree with Burke on the bigger, faster, and Kevin. When we were playing, Russia was probably the only team that had a front line of about 6'8", 6'9", big guys right in the middle, 4 of them. And it was very difficult to score against them. And they were a tremendous defensive team. In those days, it was more packed. It packed the middle. And what I like about the game now is it's much more wide open. It's more run and gun. And the wings are spread wide, which opens up the court significantly. And I just think it's a much better game to watch. There's more scoring. At least there's quicker scoring. Mm-hmm. And, I watched the USA, some of the USA Spain game, our game in 72, not too long ago. Mark Wright has a video out on YouTube. I think you all know Brothers in Arms. And I'm amazed how much faster it was. And we could have gone faster, but I just think at the time we were happy to go along with what we had. but it is much faster and it's much more wide open, and it's a better game.
Well, they made a big rule change since we all played in 72 and 76, where when you're scored against, the goalkeeper only has to pick the ball out of the goal and get it to center court. So the teams these days get a guy to center court as soon as they can, get him the ball, and away they go. When you played, you had to line everybody up on the center line.
Yep.
And until that happened, the ball wasn't put in play. And this rule, which was implemented about 10 years ago, I think, really picked up the pace of the game.
Yeah, you had to wait for the ref to blow the whistle before you could throw the ball.
Randy?
I would disagree with bigger, faster, stronger. I see that obviously in football and all the other sports around here too, with the training techniques and those type of things. It's the nuances of the game that I missed in 76 that I would be catching up on now in 2020 also.
Fantastic. Well, Rick, it's interesting you mentioned Mark Wright. He commented with a question. How about a word about the King, RIP? Which is a good
How about I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
How about a word about the King, which I'm assuming is Shandor?
Shondo, yeah. I think I'll let Kevin, since he's a Delphi teammate, talk first. But in my mind, the King is the most unique person I've ever met in life. Amazing person with a huge heart. And I just love him. And I've always gotten along well with Hungarians. I don't know why. But Shondo is a classic. I just wish everybody could meet him.
Could have met him, Rico.
Huh?
Could have met him.
Could have met him.
I'll wait to meet him again.
Yeah. Well, Shandor was one of those unique individuals that, 5 minutes after you met him, you thought you had a best friend. He just, he was a sportsman of the world. When he was a poor little kid growing up in Hungary, he had some guy do these crude tattoos of Didi and Pele, the famous soccer players, the goalie and the field scorer. And, he would go around the world, and soccer, being so huge, wherever he went, he chose tattoos, and, people knew he was into soccer. If he'd walk down the street and kids are playing, he'd just run off and start playing soccer with the kids. He was just one of those people. He was on a different wavelength, but he was also a phenomenal athlete until he had a serious knee injury right before the 72 games. And I've seen him make some saves that, I just would go, did I just really see that happen? Some guy would take his legs out. He would do a somersault in the air, jump back up, land on his feet, jump back up, and block the shot from the rebound of the original shot. Rico anyone who's played against him, when he got in the zone,
well, you don't hit him in the head.
Don't hit him in the head. No. He went into the zone immediately. Yeah. But just a great guy.
I have one quick story on Shondo, and it was, I guess it was probably that knee injury, Kevin.
Yeah.
But Shondo believed in the healing power of the Taj Mahal in India. He really did. And I can remember the practice at Delphi. He was limping, and he says, Rico, I go to Taj Mahal. I come home, I'd be better. I will be good. Sure enough, I don't know where he got the money. He flew to India, went to the Taj Mahal, came back, and he was semi-healed.
Semi-healed.
Shondo could do that.
Well, Shondo was very frugal. He lived in a very frugal apartment. He saved his money for travel. And as he said, I'm going to travel the world this way and this way. And he did, during his lifetime. Lucky guy, but one of a kind.
Well, we're happy to chat about him and honor his legacy as well during this conversation. I am going to wrap it up now and pass it off to each of you one last time for any final words, any last thoughts. We really appreciate the four of you taking time out of your night to speak with us and share some of your incredible stories. I haven't heard of a lot of these, and it's just mind-blowing to hear about some of the history and how different things were back in the day for USA Team Handball athletes. So thank you again. And if anyone wants to take it away with any last words or final thoughts.
You know, I think Mark Wright's got it correct. He's trying to make this movie, and he's put a good one on Facebook or YouTube, and it's called Brothers in Sport. And I think we who played from the time I started, my teammates, Randy in '76, to those guys playing now, we are all brothers in sport, and sisters, because I know the women's program has been up and down and now on the way again. And handball brought us all together, and we're all so thankful for that. It's made men out of boys.
Who's next?
Well, I would just encourage anyone who's considering participating in the sport to, find out some more about it. And if you do make that decision, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. But you really need to keep a focus on those personal relationships. Sports writer in Oregon here just retired, and he said, I was at Olympic Games, I covered NCAAs, I covered everything. And he said, right now I couldn't tell you the score, but I can tell you all the people I met. And I can tell you when my son was in the hospital, all these coaches and players who I had interviewed over the years contacted me. So those relationships are things that are more lasting in life. But you will have to work very hard to get through everything to have that opportunity. But it's a great trip. What else is there to do?
I just want to close by thanking again these three other gentlemen on the call here and their teammates for accepting my brother and myself as on the 76 team and welcoming into that 72 family. If you told me back in 1971 that I would have this experience and develop these relationships, I wouldn't have believed it. And so I've been humbled and blessed to have known them and to remember playing with them, but also remember them as terrific individuals. So I thank them.
Well, Randy, you're our younger brother.
we felt that way. We were welcomed as younger brothers. So
yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, because if you're looking for good role models, emulate the Dean brothers.
There you go.
Seriously.
Well, we were lucky. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree with everybody here in this case. Our 72 Olympic team gets together every year, and sometimes twice a year. We're on a email list. We probably talk 2 or 3 times a week often. And it's the friendships and the unique people that you meet. I mean, I would have never met somebody like Shando Rivnek. Unbelievable guy. And it's the people that you meet, and the Olympic experience stays with you forever. It's just something that if you have a chance, don't miss it. It's going to be the most rewarding thing you do in life.
Well, that's a perfect way to close us out. Randy, did you want to?
We were lucky to have made it. I think there are a lot of people that don't, that strive and don't quite get there. But there's something to be said for that effort and that commitment to do that. And so they should not, feel disappointed. They can be disappointed, but they should be grateful for at least giving it all they had. So.
Absolutely. Again, I could not have said it better myself. Thank you all for your time again. And thank you everyone tuning in for joining us for the 4th installation of this series. We're going to do the next one after the Thanksgiving holiday. And speaking of those sisters, it will be some members of the women's national team doing a similar virtual Olympic reunion. So again, thank you everyone. And I hope you have a good night. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Melissa.
Thank you.